Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session on purposeful leadership, self care, resilience, and mindset. Today, we want to dive into a conversation on the mental health week or month, let me say month, on how we can actually remain strong, remain intentional and purposeful. The conversation today is really centered on how we stay the course when purpose and hope are disconnected. Hope feels very distant. Our purpose feels very burdensome or blurred. And we feel like just giving up because we are at a crossroads and we're not comfortable where we're standing. If you're a leader, a Christian leader in a secular workplace, and you're going through a winter season or a dry season, this conversation will definitely benefit you. So welcome everyone, and feel free at any time to contribute to the conversation and to add your point or your value. So how do I have hope when I'm waiting? And of course, I have some notes for you on the screen. So I'm just gonna put that up so you see that and not necessarily me. I want to start by saying purpose doesn't quit when the feelings fade. In fact, it deepens when your faith is tested. And you can agree or disagree. And I'd love to see you in the chat agreeing or disagreeing. And so purpose doesn't quit when the feelings fade. It deepens when your faith is tested. And so many of us have gone through that road where you feel undervalued or unappreciated, where you're leading, you're giving, but you're just wondering, there's that little wonder there. How do I continue now that I'm feeling so helpless, or I feel out of joint, or I am no longer resonating with my purpose, or where I am, I no longer feel that this is where I should be. How do you reconcile that? For those who don't know me, I am Dr. Marcia Thomas. I'm a Christian leadership consultant and life coach. I am a best-selling author and also a motivational speaker. And I am a coach that also assists persons to complete their dissertation in their master's or PhD doctoral degree program on topics related to unconventional issues. Really good so far. And I want to say today is going to be a great talk as we understand the purpose, hope, disconnect. All right. So some persons might be saying, I am hopeless, but I do hopeless. I am not hopeless, but I do hopeless. And in this current global situation, there are a lot of persons who are hopeless, especially leaders of organization where there has to now be a lot of downsizing, and there is also have to be a lot of filing for bankruptcy, and there is also the issue of transitioning into a space where security as it relates to your pension and so on might just be on the line. And so is a lot of reasons there are, sorry, a lot of reasons for persons to feel that they are hopeless in this. But we want to keep our hope alive. And that is why I say even purposeful people can lose sight of hope. Even purposeful people can lose sight of hope. Even persons who appear to have had it all together, who appear to be on the surface, living it up, can lose sight of hope, can be functioning in a very depressive state, can be toxically positive, can be going through the motions. So what do we do when we're silently asking ourselves some questions, or we are going through these motions? When hope seems lost, what do we do? So hope can feel distant when our dreams are delayed or they are unanswered. That crucial period between waiting and promise can be very tense and can be a test. It can really try men's soul. I've been there, done that. But we must remember that there is favor out there. God's favor is really upon you when you are given a purpose and when you are faithful and obedient, when you understand. And even when you're faithful and obedient, and even when you understand, sometimes that tiring, when you are tiring with between the hope and the promise, when you're tiring between the waiting and the promise, can can be a shaking time that many might fail. And as we talk about mental health, we want to understand that good people hurt, and that depression is real, and that the struggles between faith and fear is real. The struggle between giving up and moving on is real. The struggle between accepting what you cannot change and refusing to change what you won't accept is real. And so you will have emotions that you will feel frustrated. And often I hear people say, I am so tired. And physically, you might not be tired, but emotionally, the resilience that you are carrying appears to be tiring you out, because you have to constantly bounce back. I have a student recently who lost two members of her family, and now she, on returning back to her home, she has discovered that she has lost another family member, which is her father, and that her mother is ill. That can make you become very tired. And you can begin to ask questions as to, where is God? Why is this? Am I doing the right thing? Am I moving in the right direction? Why do I feel so stagnant or stuck? Why are things keep delaying? Why are my pressure increasing? Why am I having so many things to grapple with? And those questions can burn you out. It can make you feel very angry, and you can feel distressed. But I want to tell you that these things don't cancel your calling. Elijah had the same experience. Of course, we know that Ruth had that experience also when her husband died, and her father-in-law died, and her sister's husband died, and they all had to be dealing with that, grappling on their own. And there seems to be no hope. But then hope came on the scene. And sometimes we really feel frustrated when our dreams are delayed or our prayers are unanswered. Thank you for joining, Sherry. Grand rising to you, though. I'm so happy to have you. I also want to welcome Franklin. You're with us for the last couple of weeks. I appreciate that. And then I want to welcome you also, Melanie. Thank you so much for joining. All right, we want to look at when hope feels distant. There are times when, as we tuck ourselves into our calling, we find that sometimes we pour into calling that are not ours. And that can happen in the overflow, where we are gifted, we have several gifts, and we are not focus on the central gift, the gift that is serving others in all arenas of our life, the gifts that is our setting. And we feel that our overflow requires us to pour into callings that are not ours. So we take on the fight for people, we take on their burdens, and we are good at it, very good at our roles, and so on, and we get results. But there is this thing that we feel in us, this nagging, that this is where I ought to be centered, this is where I ought to be focusing, and we keep ignoring that, and so we delay our purpose, and we put our or put it in dormancy. And so there are dreams now that become unanswered, or prayers that are not answered. And I'm speaking to Christian leaders, in particular today, Christian business owners, entrepreneurs who are faith believers and who feel that you're in a very dry season, which you are, and your prayers are not being answered. You see, when we ask amiss, when we ask outside of the will of God, when we ask outside of our calling for things that God knows does not belong to us, were never in our life script, was never in his plan, he will not answer, because God loves us. He loves us with an everlasting love, and he will not give us things that will destroy us in this life and in the life to come. And so if your prayer is not answered, is being delayed, sometimes it's because you're asking for the wrong thing. And if you're asking for the right thing and you have to go through a period of preparation, then you will linger where you are until you have released yourself through surrender, obedience, and acceptance, because that is the preparation. And then your prayer is answered. So you might be losing hope because you are fasting, you're praying, you are pushing in that direction, but you are not listening. You are not pausing to get God's answer. You're making a demand instead of a request as to what do you want me to do. You are making a demand. This is what I want to do. This is what I think I must do. This is the feeling I'm having. And so you must answer my prayers. And God, you're not answering. You're being unkind. And this waiting is pushing you to pull yourself out of your calling. Soul fatigue from constantly striving in the way I'm describing can also make you lose hope. And so you are seeking a particular promotion when God wants to take you out of where you are to a higher elevation. Joseph was taken from prison into leadership because that was his ordained divine purpose. There were some deviations and attempts to floor that purpose and to foil it and make it come out of alignment. But the moment it got there, it worked for his good, because it was meant for his good to prepare him for where he was going and what he would be taking up. And sometimes we are in our preparation ground and we lose hope. So that's why we're talking about staying the course. And as we look at it, I want to say don't lose hope. Why? Because the world's measurement is not the measure of your purpose. And so promotions might be important to the world, but purposeful leadership is more important, because the eternal value or weight or legacy that you bring is different from performing or being promoted. Popularity is a way that is also measured, productivity, followership, applause, and performance is all of this is tucked into the big place of performance. And when we look at that, we may become hopeless. We may feel like an imposter. We may feel worthless. We may feel that we do not have value. We may feel that things are not happening for you. You may feel that somewhere along the line you are being delayed and you don't understand it, and you may lose hope because your purpose is not in alignment with the expectations of the world, and your title, your reputation, your authority gives you some amount of power and gives you some amount of influence, but your purpose gives you the impact that is the essence of what your legacy and your life will reward you with. So when you're in alignment with that, you are now able to perform purposefully and intentionally. The profits that come to you are holistic. They fill out all areas of your life, actualize you, gives you financial success or peace, gives you spiritual accordance. It also gives you mental rest because you are now able to resonate with your purpose, your direction, the compass. So when things don't go as you want them, you recognize that the detour is not calling you away from your purpose. It is redirecting you into a better level and a better place. You understand that applause is temporary and you seek to change lives and outcomes rather than the applause. Your followership means that you equip persons to become masters of their own destiny. So they follow the path of their unique purpose using their unique gifts, and your productivity means that the problems you're created to solve, you begin to solve those problems. And while you're here, you understand the reason why you're here, and your popularity becomes what we call significance. And significance is that you focus more on serving rather than the service you're providing. So you touch lives in a particular way that they are able to say how you make them feel, how you are changing their mindset, how their outcome is changing, and how they are becoming masters of their own destiny. The promotions are just the roles that you're put in and the responsibilities you're given to make greater impact. And so that is how it is understood in the light of a purposeful leader or a purpose driven life. And so you are able to persevere and not lose hope. You're able to stay the course, even when you're tired, even when you're frustrated, even when you're disappointed, even when you're navigating pain or loss or grief. You do it with dignity and grace because you know what your destination is, and you know that on the journey you're going to be taking your different transportation. Sometimes you're going to be in an aeroplane, sometimes you're going to be in a car, sometimes you're going to have to walk, and sometimes you might just be in a train, or you might just be that you're right where you're supposed to be and you're just journeying with persons who you have to carry to the point of self-discovery, self-awareness, self-mastery. And so you have to understand where you are at. What is the season you're in? Are you in a season of waiting, or are you in a season of tarrying, or are you in a season of uncertainty? Is it stagnation? Is it delay? Whatever season you're in, you must understand the season and recognize the patterns and the themes of your season so you can properly prepare. You open your mind to surrender and be in obedience with the season. So you learn from the season and move on. So purpose is a process, not a performance. And so in persevering, you have to look at your faithfulness over your feelings. And so it says you need to persevere, Hebrews 10, verse 36, so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. So whatever you are asking God for, whatever you are putting out in the universe, whatever it is that you are declaring or affirming or claiming, you must make sure that it is in alignment with your purpose. And so to do that, you're going to need to have not just faithfulness, but you're going to need to have insights. So what do you do when you feel this stuck, or you feel that you might not be able to stay the course, or you feel that hope is distant? You pause. You create a spiritual stillness to hear God clearly, so that when you ask of him, and notice I say, when you make that request, when you ask, not when you demand or when you tell, because sometimes we want to command God to who knows everything, who created us, who sees the end from the beginning, to fall in line with our plans. But what is really gonna happen is that God is gonna allow you to fall in line with his plans, because his plans are really the best for you. And that is where you will get a full return on your investment, as we talked about last week, because you're in alignment, you understand, you're aware, you are actually moving at each level. You are getting, first of all, the preparation, you're getting your sustenance, then you are getting this anointing, and then you're getting this appointment, and then you're getting this commission. At each level, there is a different season, there's a different opening of doors, there are different destiny helpers, and there is a new and improved you. So every level you go, you are improved. And so if you do not pause in that stillness to hear clearly what your heart is telling you, the promptings that are on your heart, the still small voice that God is speaking to you with, you are not going to be moving. All right, so I am sure, Leslie, that God already knows. Welcome for joining us, Dr. Leslie. I know that God already knows what we want, but we have to work in tandem also. So sometimes what we want is not good for us. So as code creators, sometimes we become distracted because of who we have on board and who we take into our purview, that are naysayers, that are discouragers, that may just be covetous of your dream, of your lining. And that can make you become so distracted that you mess up the code, you detour, and you have to come back in alignment so that you get what God knows that you need and not what you want. Because, for example, somebody is at stage 3 diabetic, and they know that they are not supposed to have ice cream every single day, but that's what they want. We can't give them what you want, and it's just because they find themselves out of alignment because of what their desire was so strong, and their mind has not accepted that this is where I know I am living in this present. This is my reality, and this is how I am to operate with this new reality. I must adapt, I must adjust, and I must make the best of it. And when we are out of alignment like that, we are not sure what we really want. And sometimes you talk to person, you say, where do you want to be at this time? And how do you think you want, what do you want to change? And the person says, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. Because you have to pause. You have to be in that stillness to hear clearly what your heart is telling you and what God is prompting or placing on your heart. And so that is the thing. That is the thing. Yes, he lets us know through intuition and through those persistent promptings on our heart. That's the question. Then he lets us know through our intuition. Very much so, Dr. Leslie. We also have to pray honestly. Let God meet you in your questions. Ask him strong questions. Job did that when Job was in a period where he was losing hope, and he was wondering if he should really stay the course. So many things were happening, and he was wondering if he should actually stay the course. And he asked some very strong questions, and he actually got the answers. And that's important for us to pray honestly, to sit into that mood where we meet God with our questions, and God meets us in our questions and answers our questions honestly. Then we want to revisit the vision. So when we are wondering if we should stay the course, let us revisit the vision. What did God last tell you? What did your intuition push subtly, dripped into you? What is the prompting that you got on your heart over and over and over? What direction did it lead you to? And is what your current situation? Is that calling? Is that purpose? Is that message? Is that prompting? Is that intuition? Is it still true? Do you think it is true? Are you pressing into that calling or purpose? Or are you in the comparison trap where you're comparing yourself with others? Are you in the productivity illusion where you feel that being busy is your purpose, is fulfilling your purpose because you're always busy? Is it that you're in the illusion that I don't want to change certainty, exchange certainty for uncertainty, because these are paying my bills and this is where I want to be. And I'm not satisfied. I'm very unhappy. It's a toxic place. When I get to my home, I'm so tired and burnt out. I am so fatigued. I am so frustrated. But I have no other way out. I have to be waiting until my change come. Is it that we are in that period? And if we are, we want to be able to look back at why we started in the first place. What was your calling? What pulled you into the space that you're now and why are you feeling hoping less and less? So you're not, as we started out saying, you're not hopeless, but you're feeling hopeless and less. We want to look at those. So when we pause, when we pray honestly, when we revisit the vision, we get those answers. And that is important for you to stay the course. And then we want to look at how we feel this hope that we are reigniting after we pause, after we pray honestly, and after we revisit the vision. We want to surround ourselves with life-giving voices and community who are also giving a vision. Let me tell you something about your purpose. When your purpose is getting into alignment, God puts the same call for you on more than one person's. We call that confirmation. And so persons tell you that, do you know you're good at this? Do you know that this is what you constantly do? You're constantly putting yourself out there. You're constantly helping persons in a particular way. Every time somebody needs this, you're always there. So those promptings are put on you, and you want to surround yourself with these life-giving voices and the community that builds your purpose, supports your purpose, nurture your purpose and your calling, and give you enough room to be yourself, to be authentic, to make mistakes, and to get tired, and to doubt, and they pull you back. And they pull you back. Very good point here. Leslie, intuition and our connection with God is faith. Very much so. Faith. And if we are to put hope out there, hope is the cousin of faith. And so we can look at that and add faith also, hope also. But intuition and our connection with God is definitely faith. And we need faith to stay the course. The battle, of course, is between faith and fear. In our minds, it is very correct, always between faith and fear. Whenever you feel like you're not staying the course, there is some lack of faith, and there is also a lot of fear. Fear of change, fear of not being enough, fear of not providing for your family when you choose your health over grinding and pressure and sickness, when you choose to make the choice between spending time with your family, quality time with your family, as against being out there constantly, bringing in the roast. We have to understand that faith and fear has equal control. So you have to choose which of those you want to reside with consistently. Whichever you reside with either helps you or hinders you, and you have to understand also. So you have to practice very much so, as I come to it, faith rehearsals. What are faith rehearsals? It's looking at how far you've come, what you have achieved, what it took you to get here, and why it is still in you, and what you're carrying can move you forward. That is, for me, the faith rehearsals. Just remind yourself of who you are and not where you are, and what you are carrying out of your different experiences of faith, the faith that you're carrying forward, so that you continue to build on the faith and begin to leave fear behind. And as you build on those victories, as you build on those achievements, as you build on how you dealt with your fear in the last session, as you build on how you embrace your faith and what your faith did to transform your mind, to transform your outcome, and to change your life, you will have the ability to remain and stay the course. You will have the strength and the courage to stay the course. You will have the strength and the courage to reignite with your purpose. You will have the strength and the courage to live the purpose. And so you must also anchor yourself in the identity of who you are and not where you are. Hi, Lisa. Nice for joining. And that's important, especially now. It is very important that you win the battle between fear and faith, and you come out on the other side of fear, which is faith. And hope is so important. You don't want to lose hope at this time. And some of us are not hopeless, as I started out in this discussion, but we are losing hope. Hope is becoming less and less, and we want to be able to stay the course through purpose. Purpose is your recession-proof plan. It is constant. You don't lose purpose when you're detouring. Your calling is not changed when your status change or your role change. Your calling is constant. Your purpose is always with you. It is that persistent call to serve. And as you are serving, you must now reconcile what you're doing with who you're serving, how you help them, and how you want to continue to do it. That persistent serving with that established routine and pattern, those who you serve that are constant, even outside of your present roles or responsibility, the community that you always calls on you and who you always show up and deliver for, those are clues of what your purpose is, your real identity of who you are, why you were created, and the problem you were created to solve. Those persistent calls and voices that we call serving, by default, is actually service that has been pre-designed, pre-approved, and orchestrated in your divine life script. And so your default occurrences of service that are constantly following you in your family, in your community, in your role, and so on, those must be answered. You must answer that call, and you must answer that call very convincingly. That the answer to that call can either move you outside of your comfort zone, most of the times, outside of the space that you presently or currently operate in, and takes you into uncharted or uncertain times, but with a feeling of peace. So if you are fueling your hope in difficult seasons, then you have a deep peace and eternal rest, despite the uncertainty, despite not being sure where you are or the direction in which you are, how you're going to go in the direction that you know, feel called to with an absolute certainty. There is not the fear of the unknown. There is a deep peace and rest, knowing that this is my destination, but I'm not really sure how I'm going to get there. Good morning, Curtis. Thanks for joining. Fear is the stronger, and the battle is to listen closely for the whisper of God, which is faith. And I want to show that on the screen. Very important. Thank you, Dr. Leslie. Fear is the stronger. Most of the times, fear overtakes us, and when it should be faith. And as we said before, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling that you don't want to stay the course, the first thing you want to do is pause. And that pausing is that you want to listen closely for the whisper of God, which is faith. Then we say you must pray honestly. You must take God into your questions. And we give our example of Job. And then we say you must revisit your vision. What's the purpose you got? What's the calling that was on your heart? What was the persistent nudge or intuition? What was it that kept showing up? And how do you deliver? Why default to those who you are serving in all arenas of your life? What is your greatest thing? What are you good at? And what do you love to do? And how is it serving others? What do the persons in your environment, in your community, in your purview, in your family, what do they constantly need? Because and how do you deliver that? And how does it make you feel when you deliver that is really clinching you to your purpose? And so that gives you, when you act by default, it doesn't burden you. You don't feel this stress, you don't feel this pressure when you're acting by default, when persons are you're all things to these persons who you really want to be, because it's your natural gift and your unique calling and your talent. You'll find that you're always showing up. Persons sometimes need so much from you financially and so on, and you're finding that you're wondering, how did you find that? And you always deliver. Persons require you to do things that are not in your role or job description, but those are the things you love doing. Those are the things that fulfill you. That is what you get your joyful work from. You need to pause and you need to pay attention. And so you are fruitful beyond what you can track. So fueling your hope in difficult times means that you have this peace and internal rest, even though you lack the understanding. And then you have the fruitfulness beyond what you can track, which is the example I just gave you. When they call on you, you don't know. You keep showing up in those areas of default instead of where you want to rest, instead of the calling that you want to be pouring into, instead of the productivity and the business zone. You'll find that by default, you are more fulfilled into the calling, into those things that you push over there. Some persons call it your hobbies. So you're not working one day when you embrace that, you are not actually working. You don't work in your life when you embrace your hobby. Some people call it a hobby. What is it that you're good at and what you love doing and what really gives you fulfillment and joy? And sometimes in the mix, as we say before, there has to be a detour to get you to your calling. The detour means that there might be some roadblocks or hindrances over here because there is the fixing, there is a change, there's a transformation that requires the preparation. And so some persons in your season might feel that you are fasting and praying and you are not getting the answers. It's because God, who knows best, understands that this is not the calling that you're going to be poured into. And so he, in his right mind, who wants to give good gifts to his children and who knows everything, decides that I cannot answer this prayer and I am preparing and nudging you. And in that waiting between the hope and the promise, between the faith and the fear, that hope in between the accomplishment and the answer is the trouble time that makes you either stay the course or give up and put your purpose into dormancy or delays it. And we want to understand that so that we understand that God's divine favor is upon us when we are waiting and when we are in the process of staying the course. That disconnect between purpose and hope is your waiting period to prepare you for the divine favor and the open doors that are out there. It is a season in which you are to focus on getting the clarity and the focus, pause and listen to God's voice, and you must rest in your unshaken identity, who you are, who you're created to be, the problem that you're created to solve. When you rest into that of who you are and not where you are, then you will stay the course. You will be consistent, you will be persistent, and you will build your faith. Thank you so much, Leslie. That is correct. And purpose is the same for everyone. I am in full agreement with that, Leslie. Purpose is the same for everyone because service is the result. It is serving others. It is serving others with your unique gifts, with your ability in the place that you were created to serve those persons, change their lives and their outcomes, and make them become masters of their own destiny in your roles and responsibility. That's why you hear some person say, if 10 years ago they told me that I would be in Paris, I would tell them no. But these last 10 years, when I got here and when I decided to embrace what was always on my heart, to open a little hospital here for children who have certain types of eye defect, I committed myself, I studied, I learned, and here I am today. And it is so joyful. Do you hear them say sometimes it's not even about the money, it's about the joy and the riches that comes when I see the smile or hear the exclamation when this person is now seen. This is a child and the beauty that the child brings and echoes in the environment. Very important, very purposeful. Yes, me too. I learned that I do better when I do not know how to do something, because I must then rely on the wisdom of my co-creator. I must now listen to God. I must know. I am now connecting my soul to the calling of whatever it is that I want to know, or what I need to know how to do. I am in agreement again. And that's the unshaken, persistent call of purpose. You don't always know how to do what you are required to do, but you know that you carry, and what is in you can deliver with the proper preparation, with the grooming, with the sustenance, with the anointing, with the appointment, and with the commission that you have been given. All right. So we want to now look at staying aligned when hope feels far. We must pause so that we get the clarity. And so when clarity feels far, when we are uncertain, when we are not sure what is the next step, when we are waiting and tarrying between that hope and the promise, we want to be obedient. The obedience and the surrender becomes your compass, because it allows you to stay the course, because you don't mind waiting, because you want the clarity, you want the focus, you want the direction, and you want the wisdom to move in the right direction. And so you don't mind waiting. That's what I'm saying. So when clarity feels far, when you don't know what your next, you know what you want, but you don't know what your next step is, and you seem to be waiting, you seem to be in a dry season, you must seek to be obedient and to surrender fear and embrace faith and hope. You want to be able to surrender what it is that you are thinking and listen to the prompting of your heart. So it might be that you're thinking that this promotion will be the answer to all your dreams, but God has no intention of keeping you there and to promoting you inside that organization. He is promoting you outside into your own business or into your own space. And there you become master of your destiny. You have your time. You're able to spend quality time with your family and friends. You also did not predict that you might have to be dealing with an ailing mother. And so that positions you right out there. You are forced out many times out of the place that you want to be tied to, and that you have pinned down yourself. And so when you get to that point where there is no clarity, your obedience and your surrender, which now becomes your compass, nudges you into the right position to do what you want to do. And in that waiting period, you can lose hope, but you don't want to. You want to remain obedient and open, so you're able to listen to God's voice. You're able to hear him, and you're able to write the new vision and make it plain, so you can take the strategic actions, and you can be surrounded by the life-giving voices and destiny helpers, and you can move with assurance. So you want to also nourish your soul so that you are able to embrace the scripture that is being given to you to carry you forward. You want to embrace rest. You want to in being gratitude and worship for every situation, in every single thing you want to give thanks, especially for those things you don't know. Because as I said to someone last week, God, I am happy for the battles that God is fighting that I cannot see, because the ones I have in front of me are very frightening. So I am thankful for those battles that God fights that we can't see. And that comes from the worship and the gratitude. And I also have a principle where I thank God for what he has done and what he has not done, the things he has not answered, because I really trust his wisdom and not rely on my wisdom. And I know I'm a co-creator, because the co-creation means that you have faith that can move mountains. It also means that without faith, it is impossible to please God and for the universe to answer your call, because you must believe that he is, and that he's a reward of those who diligently seek him. That is the power of faith and hope. That is the power, because as we move through the dry seasons, as we tarry, as we wait, as we listen to God, the fear becomes the classroom and not the lesson for me. The fear can become the classroom that leads us to faith. And then it's also a lesson. You can also have a lesson, because some persons have one instance when they are fearful, but there are other persons who have frustration after frustration, who are getting emotionally tired and who are burnt out and who are so fatigued because it's one thing after the other, one disappointment after the other, one loss after the other, one grief after the other. And so persons can become so anxious, so fearful, that they are constantly anxious. So they have an anxiety disorder. And we are saying when it gets or starts on the path to those points, we don't want to get to that point. We want to remain close enough. We want to pause. We want to get the clarity. We want to nourish our souls. We want to listen to wise counsel and the life-giving voices. And we want to rely on our purpose, not from a place of how we feel, but from a place of what we know, what has been persistently put on us, from our intuition. So we get the direction to move where we ought to be moving, and not to be going around in circles, because God says, I know the plans I have for you. It is to prosper you. It is not to harm you. It is to prosper you. It is to give you the expected end. And this is one of my favorite Bible texts, because it is very important when I am losing hope. Yes. When I feel that my hope is getting less and I am doubtful that I will stay the course. This is one of the things I know. He has plans for me. I need to now look into what those plans are. And so I want you to think about this as I wind down. You are not disqualified because you're discouraged or because you feel like you would give up. You're not disqualified from your purpose because you feel, or life, because you feel anxious, or you are so disappointed or feel so betrayed that you have to take a break. You pull into yourself. You are less trustful of persons. You're not disqualified. You are just human. And in that, you want to understand that your purpose is still valid. God is still present. And so hope may be distant, but he's not. So you have to reach out in faith. And you have to make sure that fear carries you to faith. Your fear, your helplessness, your anxiety, your disappointment, your loss must take you to fear. Take you to faith, sorry. Whatever you're experiencing in that season, it must take you to faith, because faith is what allows you to stay the course. And so the key takeaways is that purpose is a path and not a performance. So even when the spotlight dims, your calling is still greater, much greater than your feelings. And that's why we are saying purpose is a path, not a performance. The next key takeaway I want you to take from this is that hope may flicker, but purpose holds. What do I mean when I say hope may flicker, but purpose holds? I am saying that temporary discouragement or discomfort doesn't cancel eternal assignments. So you might have a detour, you might have a discouraging season, you might feel stagnant or stuck at a point, you might feel that you're delayed too long, but you need to remain focused because your assignments, your purpose assignments are not canceled. You are being prepared. So you need to focus on what it is that you are eternally being prepared for. And then I mean eternal in this life and in the life to come. So we want to focus on that. The next thing that is a key takeaway for me that I want you to understand is resilience requires rhythm. And that rhythm is rest and recreation, your reflection, and the spiritual nourishment that you give yourself. All right? And these are parts of staying the course. You also want to remember that delay is not denial. God often does his deepest work in our seasons of waiting. So delay is not denial. You want to remember that also. And you want to remember that you are not alone in the middle. The wilderness is often the place where character is refined and clarity, your birth clarity. You know, you're sure that this is what you need to be doing. Moses got that experience. It took him 40 years, but it should not take us that long. It takes focus. It takes persistent action. It takes listening, active listening, and it takes determination, not necessarily in that order. The listening would come first. But you want to remember that purpose is a part, not a performance, that hope may flicker, but purpose will hold. Delay is not denial. Resilience requires rhythm, and you are not alone when you're in the middle. That middle ground is a serious point. And so your leadership challenge for this week is I want you to ask yourself, where have I stopped showing up because hope feels out of reach? And you want to identify one area where you're grown weary or disconnected from your purpose. And everyone, as I say, even the best of us, sometimes lose hope, is challenged. All right. We also want to look at taking one bold step this week to re-engage with your purpose so you can stay the course. And it can be that you re-engage through a prayer, through a conversation, through a journal entry, or through a soul sync strategy session. I want you to remember that staying the course doesn't always look like progress because it's not a huge step or a big change or different. It's silent. It's sometimes very silent, but it is a persistent, powerful step that you have taken that gradually builds up over time. And so you want to understand that it can only be built up through obedience. And so, if this conversation resonates with you and you want to take the next step, let us book a soul sync strategy session. And this is where now we work together to reconnect that purpose that still lives in you and realign your leadership if that is what it is, and you're calling for sustainable impact in 2025 and beyond. So we want to also remember a key takeaway that I want to add in. Thank you, Dr. Leslie. Seeking him is really seeking ourselves. We are created in God's image after his likeness. And we are co-creators, and that's important. Fearfully and wonderfully made before we were born, our paths established, so that we can honor God. That's so important. Seeking him is really seeking ourselves. We ought to remember that. If you're not quite ready to find yourself or to seek him so we can find ourselves, you can start by just doing a purpose alignment audit, and that link can be found on my profile. So I say you always have hope, and the power of hope is always important, because hope is seeking faith over fear. And hope is what makes you actually stay the course. When you find your purpose, identify it, when you understand it, and when you begin to live it, you are able to persistently answer the call of changing lives, of changing outcomes, in the sum total of serving others, who you were born to serve, how you were created to serve them, where you must serve them, and how you must change your lives and their outcomes and make them become masters of their own destiny. Service is that rent we pay for our sojourn on this earth. It is called purpose, and it has eternal consequences or rewards, because it can be either. And it is also something that gives you joy and also brings profits. Thank you for listening, and may your Tuesday be peaceful, intentional, and purpose filled. I want you to also have a great rest of the week. Thank you for getting my mind moving on Tuesday mornings, my friend. These are all the things that give me joy here too as I join your programs. Thank you so much, Dr. Leslie, for joining. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. I think we had a Melissa over here, yes. And Franklin, thank you for joining us for the last 3 weeks. Truly appreciate it. And thank you so much, Sherry, for joining us. God be with you, and have a great day today as you focus on these points.